Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about a place where people have seen various full-body apparitions, sounds of screams, pounding on walls, blood splattered all over walls, and hands coming out of bathroom mirrors. Just to name a few of the documented encounters at this location. Things so terrifying that people have went away shaken, some in tears, and at least in one occasion, somebody ran out of their room screaming. What is this location that's been named the most haunted location in all the United States? And who is mainly responsible for making it that way? Tonight, we're talking about the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs and the man in purple himself, Norman Glenwood Baker. Welcome to Horror History and Haunting. I'm your host, Christina. As always, please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. I do really appreciate everything you do. And now, back to the story. Norman Glenwood Baker was called the Man in Purple because of the love he had for the color. He was often seen wearing a white suit with purple embellishments like purple shirts, purple ties. He even owned an orchid-colored car, and it was fitted with air conditioning and bulletproof glass, which was unheard of at the time. And it was weird because the standard color for most cars at the time was black, so to have a purple one, it was kind of strange. He was born in Muscatine, Iowa, November 27th, 1882, to a very wealthy and established family. His father had over 126 inventions to his name, and his mother, before she got married, was a published writer. He was the youngest of 10 kids in the family, and he quit school when he was a sophomore in high school. He tried at first to kind of follow in his father's footsteps and be a machinist, and he did have some success himself as an inventor. He has been credited with the invention of the automatic air calliope, or the calliophone, which was a variation of the steam organ through his business name of Tangley and Baker. The fact that it was portable made it in much demand for the fairgrounds and the circus industry. At some point, when he was a young man, he saw a mentalist, and he became infatuated with traveling shows and mentalism and magic and other vaudeville performers. He then created his own troupe and traveled under the name Charles Welch with a female partner who had the stage name of the mind reader Pearl Tangley. During his vaudeville days, he honed his skills as a showman and used his charisma to enthrall his audiences. He used these skills to start a radio station and a radio career in 1924. He owned and hosted the station. It was called KTNT, which was short for Know the Naked Truth. He often broke the law, broadcasting well over the 5,000 watts that he was allotted for his station. And because he amped up the wattage, he was able to be heard all over the United States. So he became one of the most popular shows at that time. This is also when he started the Naked Truth newsletter, which eventually changed its name to something else. On his radio show, Baker would often go on tirades, which often included anti-Semitism and anti-Catholic rants. He created various conspiracy theories and targeted various local corporate government. He would make unfounded accusations about mandated cattle tuberculosis testing, water fluoridation, vaccinations, aluminum cookware, which he claimed was the cause of at least half the cancers out there. He frequently targeted the American Medical Association, which he called the American Meat Cutters Association, of having a cure for cancer but keeping it secret so they can continue to do unnecessary surgeries and treatments and radiation therapies for money. In 1929, he met Charles Ozias in Kansas City, Missouri, Ozias claimed he had the cure for cancer. He said it was a secret blend of herbs and spices, which sounds like chicken to me, but supposedly it was the cure to cancer. In truth, it was only just a mix of corn silk, clover, and some ground watermelon seeds in water and carbolic acid that he would inject into people. Baker started performing open-air demonstrations of this cure and others on his radio station. At this time, he also opened the first Baker Institute of Muscatine, which was his first cancer-curing hospital. He staffed the hospital with chiropractors, osteopaths, and so-called medical doctors, but they were more or less like diploma mill doctors. They weren't very credible. He also created his own cure for cancer, which contained equal parts of alcohol, glycerin, and carbonic acid that he would inject into people. He was charging upwards to $1,000 per injection treatment for this. In 1932, the FTC finally denied his license to renewal of the radio station. They did that on grounds of vulgarity, immorality, or indecency, and that finally closed his radio station down. But by then, he already had the newsletter going out to thousands of people across the United States. He also faced various legal trouble that closed down his hospital at the time, and thanks to what came out at the trial for that, he was later charged with practicing medicine without a license. So he fled to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. So he went across the border. There he started a 100,000 watt border blasting station called XENT. He also tried to run for governor of Iowa from there, but he never made it on the ballot, thank goodness. He also tried a couple attempts at the Senate through the years, but he lost. I think he tried 2 or 3 times and he lost every one. So thank God he never got in government. In 1936, he was able to work out a deal where he would serve 1 day in jail and pay a $1,000 fine and then have a clean slate to return to the United States. So he knew somebody up there because they handled the situation for him. After being ran out of his home state, he moved to Arkansas and he opened Dr. Baker's Cancer Curing Hospital in Eureka Springs in 1937. Baker's cures were often cruel and painful for the patients. Some of his treatments included things like drilling a hole in their head and injecting the cure right into their brain. Others would be subjected to like 5 or 7 injections a day, depending on where the cancer is, the locations of their cancer, in the veins, just all over the place. The nurses often referred to themselves as machine guns because they were given so many shots a day to all these people. If someone became too loud for them to handle because of their pain or their treatments, they were immediately transferred to the psychiatric ward that he created, which was a sectioned off section of the hospital that was completely soundproofed, so nobody could hear them. So if they were complaining about their treatment, they went to the psych ward. If they were screaming out in pain, they went to the psych ward. It seemed like if they became an inconvenience, they got shipped off to the psych ward. He would often only accept patients who didn't have family, and before he admitted them, he would make them sign these blank letters addressing to any known relatives that they had, and he would later fill them in with lies declaring them much improved and well and that they were doing fantastic. And then he was also notorious for releasing people that were called cured to go home, only for them to die on the train on the way home, or they finally get home and then a couple days later then they would pass away at home. But he claimed that they were cured from the hospital, so it wasn't his treatment that caused it, it was something that happened on the way or at home that caused him to pass away. There were rumors that he would conduct surgery on patients. Mind you, he is not a medical doctor, but he would conduct surgery in the basement and remove portions of like cancers and tissue and different things and put them in jars. There was also a rumor that he had some sort of tunnel that connected directly from the hospital to a crematory in town, but they've never found any proof of the tunnel. They've never found the tunnel. he also had secret passageways. Now, this is rumor, but that he had secret passageways throughout the hospital so then he could travel without going down the main corridors of the hospital for some reason. And then he would send a letter to a relative after a patient died. And mind you, this patient has passed away. He's already been cremated. But he would send a letter to the relative explaining that he needed a certain sum of money to take care of the arrangements for their burial. And Baker, he only kept the money. He pocketed it himself. He didn't use that for that patient. And he did so many more horrific things that I can't go into in this video, but let me know if you want another video. I'll deep dive into Baker and everything that he did. Now, it became known in 2019 that he kept jars of not only his cure, but of specimens from his patients that he would remove, like cancer tumors, organs, tissue, fat, things like that. And they made a gruesome discovery of about 500 jars found buried outside on the property grounds when they were doing some remodeling. They unearthed it, which now is preserved as a monument that you can actually go see. Also, at the time, the state of Arkansas didn't want to close the hospital, even though, you know, everything that was going on with Baker. They didn't want to close the hospital because it was boosting the economy for Eureka Springs, and the XENT radio station was completely out of the country, so they couldn't shut that down. The only thing that the federal government could do at the time was to go after his publication claims legally. So in 1940, a federal judge determined that his treatments at the hospital were a fraud, and his advertisements for the hospital were therefore illegal. So they couldn't get him for his treatment of his patients, but they could get him for mail fraud, because he advertised these treatments to people to bring other patients in. Baker only served 4 years of a federal prison sentence in Leavenworth and had to pay a fine of only $4,000 for mail fraud. And that was it. But while he was in prison, the hospital did close and the radio station closed because he was not around to manage either one of them. So that was a good thing. Now, he only served 4 years. Eventually, Norman Baker retired to Florida. He lived a very comfortable life. He lived on a 3-story yacht that formerly was owned by a railroad baron. He died of the ripe old age of 75. And ironically, he died of liver cancer and cirrhosis of the liver from drinking too much. And that's how he passed away. The Crescent Hotel, also known as the Grand Old Lady of the Ozarks. It is a 78-room hotel and spa that sits on top of a mountain in the Ozarks, and it overlooks the town of Eureka Springs. It first opened its doors in 1886 as a luxury retreat for people that wanted to partake in the healing springs of the area in comfort. Now, unfortunately, it fell on hard times because it was abandoned and fell into disrepair because people stopped going. In 1908, it was given another life as the Crescent College and Conservatory for Young Women, but due to financial difficulty, it closed again in 1924. Over the years, the property was repurposed as a junior college in 1930, and during the summer months, it was used as a hotel, but the owner couldn't make things work as a success, and it closed again in 1934. Then along came Norman Baker and his Norman B. Baker's Cancer Curing Hospital in 1937. And it closed sometime while Baker was serving time for the charge of mail fraud, and that was between 1940 and 1944. In 1946, the Crescent was purchased by John R. Constantine, Herbert E. Shutter, Herbert Byfield, and Dwight Nichols. But unfortunately, on March 15th, 1967, the hotel was nearly burned to the ground. And it only had one surviving owner at the time, and that was Dwight Nichols. It sat in disrepair and vacant until 1997. In 1997, it was purchased by Marty and Elise Rodnick, and they restored the property to its former glory over a 6-year renovation project, and it has been open to guests both living and dead ever since. The Hotel Hauntings. The oldest and best known ghost on the property is, of course, Michael. He was one of the Irish stonemasons credited for creating the 18-inch thick limestone walls forming the frame of the hotel. It was like the bone structure of the hotel. He was working on the roof when he spotted a pretty girl down below, and being a bit of a ladies' man, he attempted to get her attention by showing off, maybe doing a little dance, but he lost his footing. Well, it fell off the roof that he was working on, and now he landed on one of the support beams that became the floor for room 218 when he died. So he hit the beam and he passed away. In the room, people claim to hear banging on the walls, hands reaching through the bathroom mirror at them, a scream that emanates from the ceiling, and then a big thud, like something hitting above them. And one person actually ran from the room screaming, claiming that they were blood spattered all over the walls. Now, he is known to respond to both women and Irish lullaby music. So if you ever investigate this at the hotel, keep that in mind. In room 419, a spirit known as Theodora resides. She is often seen fumbling for her keys at the front door, only to later on vanish. She is also known to be a neat Nancy, and she will sometimes tidy up guest things left in the room, like small items, change clothes, the bedding, stuff like that. She has gone as far as packing up all of a guest's things into their suitcase, moving the suitcase to the front of the room by the door, and leaving it there for them. She does this particularly to people that she doesn't like for some reason. She wants them out of her room. She is thought to either have been a patient or a nurse during the Norman Baker cancer curing hospital days. Now, if you're outside looking at the third floor balcony at around 10:30 p.m. at night, you might encounter the haunting scene referred to as the Lady in the Mist. Her story is a tragic one. It is thought that she was a student at the hotel when it was the Crescent College and Conservatory for Young Women in the 1920s. She had become pregnant somehow out of wedlock, which was very scandalous at the time, and she was either pushed over the railing or out of her despair threw herself off the third floor balcony and died on the ground below. She is seen shrouded in mist, and unfortunately she's forced to relive these tragic last moments of her life over and over again. Now, it doesn't happen every night, but it always happens right around the same time, about 10:30 at night. Now, near room 212, guests often see a man dressed finely in a top hat. They think that this gentleman is Dr. John Freeman Ellis, who used that room as his office in the late 19th century when he was a living doctor at the time. Or sometimes if you go around that room, you can just smell the sweet smell of very expensive cherry tobacco, pipe tobacco, drifting outside the door. In the halls of the hotel, a young boy can be seen. He's usually bouncing a ball, or he's just playing through the halls. Many think this is Little Brecky, is what they call him. He was a little 4-year-old child of Richard and Mary Breckenridge Thompson. He died in the hospital due to complications from a appendicitis, and he passed away. He is also known to mess with the pots and pans in the kitchen. A little girl ghost is also seen roaming the halls of the hotel, and she's often seen laughing and playing. She is thought to have been a daughter of one of the nurses back in the hospital days. She was left unattended on the third floor balcony area, the floor landing, close to the stairwell, and somehow she managed to squeeze through the railing and fell all the way down to the bottom of the stairs and passed away there. There is even at this property a ghost cat that wanders the property, and his name is Morris. He had held the honorable title of the hotel general manager for 21 years. And they actually had a memorial service that like 300 people came out, and there's a lovely portrait in the lobby and a poem underneath for him, and he is also buried on the grounds with a small memorial stone outside. Some people just see him, and other people just feel a cat kind of rub up against their leg, and they expect the current kitty general manager Jasper to be there, which is like a black and white kitty, only to see nothing there. And Morris, when you see him, he's an orange tabby. So if you see Morris, you know, he's the orange tabby, not Jasper, the black and white kitty. Now, these are only a handful of the stories about the ghosts that wander the grounds and the type of experiences people have. I just picked like the top 6 or so. There's a ton more that you can find out about. These experiences and many more have been documented by countless paranormal investigators and respectable groups. Some of them including TV paranormal groups such as Ghost Hunters, Paranormal Witness came, the Ghost Adventures crew came, and there's been countless internet personalities that have came and investigated the property, and you can find those on YouTube. If you'd like to experience the haunted side of the Crescent Hotel for yourself, you can book a stay and take any one of the ghost tours that they offer nightly, or the Eureka Springs Paranormal Society. They have weekend investigation adventures that you can sign up for and stay at the hotel for. All this you can learn on the Crescent Hotel website, which I will leave in the description below so you can check it out for yourself if you're interested. So, do you think the Crescent Hotel is the most haunted hotel in the United States? What do you think of a place where people check in but never leave? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching till the end. I greatly appreciate you. And as always, good night and sweet dreams.